Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Hey there, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode. One of the most powerful, innovative tools used in the world of business is design thinking. Now, a large number of companies and industries have used the process, which is also frequently called design sprints, to quickly problem solve issues or determine the best course of action based on the desires of their target audience or their end user. Now, I am extremely passionate about design thinking and frequently work with corporations to facilitate their design sprints. And my guest today shares this same passion with me. But what's really cool is that she adds a unique twist to it. Coonoor Behal is the founder and CEO of Mindhatch, which is a consultancy that helps organizations create the conditions for innovation and creativity to thrive. Through Mindhatch, Coonoor delivers a unique mix of expertise in design thinking, organizational improv, innovation facilitation, and diversity and inclusion. That's a mouthful, right? We also talked today on the episode about the learning she has gained from her new book called I Quit, where she shares stories about the value of quitting what's not working and pivoting to more promising opportunities. So be sure to listen to her addition to our Leadership Execution Playbook and my closing segment called Karen's Take, where I share a tip on how to use insights from today's episode to further sharpen your leadership acumen. And now, enjoy the show. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. This is Karen, and I am just tickled pink to have on today's episode a great colleague of mine, Coonoor Behal, who is the founder of Mindhatch, which is a consultancy that really helps organizations create the conditions for innovation and creativity to thrive. And they are just super dynamic, as you will soon learn. So, welcome to the podcast, Coonoor.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy we're finally doing this after I had to reschedule more times than I care to admit. I'm really glad that the time is here. The time is nigh. Yeah.
No worries at all. We both have very busy schedules, but this is the ideal time. This is the time that was meant to
Yeah.
be. So, so are you ready to give us a sneak peek into your own leadership playbook?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If that is what is required, I will comply. Yes. Yeah.
I know you're going to have a lot to share, so no worries. But to start it off, for as much as you feel comfortable, we'd love to hear a little bit about your personal background. If you can just share maybe, where you grew up, a little bit about your life growing up, and a bit about your personal journey thus far.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, stop me whenever you want to stop me.
Okay.
But sometimes I feel like I have a lot of life left to live, and other times I feel like I've already lived like 17 lives. Um, so I grew up in rural Ohio, a kid of immigrants, Indian immigrants, although my father actually was born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya. Obviously grew up traveling a lot, both to visit family in Africa and in India, but also just traveling a lot internationally. I think for a long time I'd been to more countries than I had US states. That might still be true. I should do a count. Yeah, and then I escaped rural Ohio and went to college in New York City, and it was like a fish to water. Loved it so much. My first kind of career aspirations were to work in the entertainment industry on the production side, so kind of like the business side of entertainment was my interest. And then at the end of college, after spending all 4 years of college, kind of dedicating my internships, if not my academics, but my internships to that field, I decided, no, I don't want to do that. And so So what I did do was go to like my kind of second passion at the time, which was politics, and I went and got a master's degree of international relations, and that led me into kind of my second career attempt as an NGO worker. I worked for an international nonprofit development organization for several years. And it's a whole book about why I left that industry. But I did, and I went into the private sector, and I was an innovation and strategy consultant at Deloitte Consulting for a few years. And then from there, I was very much inspired by my time there. But what that inspiration did was encourage me to leave and found my own company, which is Mindhatch.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing. And we're going to talk about Mindhatch in just a
Yeah.
second, but just wanted to drill down on a few things. So, first of all, probably outside the podcast, we're going to need to compare notes because I think
Mhm.
I've visited over 35 countries. I consider myself a citizen of the world. So, I would
Wow.
love to share travel experiences and cultural
Yeah,
experiences at some point.
absolutely.
And the other thing I'd love to drill in on a little bit is, it's more popular now for individuals to transition and try different industries and companies and segments. And I'm just curious for you, how was it transitioning your career to a totally different industry so many times? Were there your challenges? Did you gain just additional insights and perspectives? I think listeners would love to, hear about multiple disciplinary focuses on their careers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can definitely share like parts that were hard because certainly there were, it wasn't all unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah.
But then parts that made it easy or parts that made it feel like no-brainers.
Sure, we'd love
I
to hear
think
that.
on the no-brainer side of things, like what made the decision to change easy was just having the facts laid bare before me about where I was and kind of really
Mhm.
learning firsthand that, oh, this is not a good match for my values, and or my
Mhm.
skills, and or what I hope my career to be here is not possible. And so I think it was really just that's what made kind of the decision to switch like easy was because I had new information that I could not have possibly had before, and then I just chose to act on that new information, right? And kind of
Yes.
really just iterate, and be experimental. I think even though I was always pretty, unfortunately, career minded from a young age, like even high school and college, I think I never thought to myself ever that like the sign of success is sticking at one place forever.
Interesting.
Even if
Yeah.
I might have thought I would do that before going into something, it never felt like a failure from that measurement because that
Hmm.
was never my measurement, for a career. Yeah. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And then the
Absolutely.
things that made it hard were obviously, I think it's more acceptable now, which I'm so grateful for. But at the time, you're looked at pretty askance of like, wait, what? What? Like, what? And you always worry about like, oh, I only spent 2 years there. What is that going to show? Or, oh my gosh, it took me a couple months in between jobs to find something, and you feel like you're always on the back foot trying to kind of explain yourself away, which is hard, to do that. Um, but and then I think the hard things also are just, I think just like acknowledging like, wow, I was wrong. Like I thought I was going to be right about this, but I was wrong, and so it's hard to like not beat yourself up about that and then know that it's honestly not your fault, right? Because again, you got new information you couldn't have had.
That's
And then I think the other thing is, I think one thing that's maybe given me the confidence to make so many changes has been that I was never keen on specialization.
right.
Like
And why is
my
that?
undergrad degree, even my graduate degree, very multi and interdisciplinary, and so, and I really, really believe in that kind of education, because I think what it does for people, myself included, is it makes you adaptable and teachable, and you can connect dots, and you can kind of slot into different things, more different things than, say, if I had, just studied accounting my entire life. I no knock on accountants. I love my accountant. But that's just the first thing I could think of. Yeah, that would be hyper specialized. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I just wanted you to share a little bit about that because, I believe there are a lot of people in the workplace who are trying to find their niche. Some of them are like you that have a variety of interests in different areas and want to try things out, and that it's okay if you are have the courage to do that, um, and it's okay to explore that as far as
Mhm.
some of your career options. And it's also okay if you found your passion and your magical industry. It's also okay to stay there a few years,
Yeah,
and kind of go
absolutely.
deep. So anything, I thought that was interesting. I also now would love to talk a little bit about how I think one of the areas that we initially connected on was our mutual love for design thinking and exploration. But I want to combine that with what you do at Mindhatch. So would you mind, kind of sharing an overview of some of your areas of focus at Mindhatch, and then maybe if you
Yeah.
can talk a little bit about design thinking and how that is such an impactful method for leaders in their teams.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thanks for that. Yeah, so at Mindhatch is my company I founded nearly 9 years ago. And as you said in the introduction, we're all about helping you create the conditions for innovation and creativity to thrive. And so, true to my kind of interdisciplinary mindset, the things that we do, I view more as like methodologies that can be applied. More so methods than services, right? So one methodology we use is what we've trademarked as organizational improv. I personally have been an improv comedy performer for over a decade, and an improv teacher. And so it was another one of those no-brainers to kind of fold it into Mindhatch when I founded it. So it is really applied improv. So applying the principles and behaviors and mindsets and skills behind improv theater and improv comedy, to the workplace, for a lot of
And what
different
is some of the magic that you see that comes out of that when teams experience organizational improv?
Yeah, I mean, they can be small changes and big changes. Like the big changes can be just a totally different culture change and a way of
Mhm.
working, like by through experiencing something like that together on an iterative basis, right? And then I think maybe you can call it smaller level, just kind of like cohesion and connectivity and mutual vulnerability and humility that can come about from doing that together. As well as, of course, like specific kind of skills development. We've done sessions using improv as the teaching method, or the training method rather, for like communication skills and innovation skills and customer service skills, and it can be applied to a lot of things because it is such a human endeavor,
It is.
much like work is, and so I think it can be applied in a lot of different places. Yeah.
It can be, and, I've had, some experience, not nearly as deep as the experiences you've had, but I've had some experiences in taking, organizational improv classes, and what I've seen, witnesses, just a building of confidence of
Yeah.
teams, through that shared experience,
Hmm.
where you're to be honest with you, it's a little scary and a little vulnerable sometimes when
Yeah.
you're going through it. But when you learn how to, enjoy and laugh and learn and build, those skills, people come out more courageous,
Hmm.
and connected, as you mentioned, as a team. So I think that work is so valuable for organizations, um, and to your success, I think a lot of, organizations see that as well.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
organizational improv is definitely one of our methods. And I kind of like a little offshoot of that is we also are applying improv to the DEI needs that
Mm.
exist in companies. That we have a diversity and inclusion improv show called White Privilege Black Power,
Wow.
and it's not a training, it's not a workshop. It's very much like a show, but then plus a Q&A after, where we will when we're all trained in DEI, we will answer questions and kind of like provide support and resources to folks about things that are going on. But yeah. And so that's organizational improv. We also do facilitation work, as might have been obvious from the other things that we do. So usually, because of our innovation expertise, it is around like innovation needs, such as
Mhm.
ideation, filling the pipeline of an innovation funnel. But sometimes it can also be like strategic sessions and retreat sessions, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
And then I saved design thinking for last because I know you wanted to specifically talk about that. But
Well, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So design thinking is a big part of our work. Basically, human-centered design using. We'll talk more about this, I'm sure you and I will. But basically, it's a methodology for creative problem solving and solution development, and one that really is led by, in spirit and in method, by insights you gain from real customers.
That's right.
Yeah, and so
Mhm.
we do both the capacity building side, going into companies and training their people on what design thinking is and how to use it and how to apply it to their particular kind of work. Also do kind of the consulting side of it, like going in and being the embedded, design strategist or design thinking facilitator, for a team and kind of guiding them along through the end-to-end process.
Mhm.
And even like a little bit of coaching here and there for people who just need like a couple hours a week to kind of get some advice on doing it on their own within their companies. So
Yeah, that is fantastic work, as you know, and I'm very passionate about about that type of modality and approach for learning. And I'm just curious for what you see with your clients. Of course, there's usually a problem that they're trying to solve, right? And we kind of help work with them to set up and narrow it down to exactly, what you're trying to solve and to narrow the focus. But I'm just curious for you and your clients, what do you see the leaders really trying to um, achieve when they book design thinking consultations with you all? Because there's so many other offerings out there by companies. Why do you think it's such a hot method that they
hmm.
want to bring in and have their teams experience?
Well, I hope it's a hot method. Oh my gosh. um, yeah. So I think my observation of when I've been brought in by leaders, I think one kind of experience I've observed is like I think sometimes leaders will be like, "Oh, you know what, we need this because we have this goal, we have to create this product or this service, and it's a little bit kind of tactical and it's about like
Mhm.
what will be produced by using this methodology, and that's great.
Mhm.
That's a great reason to bring in design thinking. Don't get me wrong. But what I do feel, especially in the trainings that I do, what becomes abundantly clear really early on is, oh wow, in order by doing this work, we are changing our culture. But then also in order to do this work, we have to change our culture, you know? Like I find that at the end of my training sessions, the capacity building sessions, I always leave time for questions, of course, and hang out. And the questions are rarely like, oh wait, in that method, what was step 2 that we did? The questions are always around like, how can we get buy-in and support to do more of this? Or here's a cultural or leader challenge I have that's going to prevent me from carrying this forward. How do I navigate around that, or how do I solve that? So that just kind of tells me that like, yes, like if you're going to do it and do it well, like
Mhm.
it requires a change in mindset and the way you work together as well. Yeah. So I think probably leaders, like they're smart, right? They see that happen in the room as well, right? And they're like, oh,
They
okay, I thought
do.
this was just like a tactical, let's get shit done kind of thing. But
Absolutely.
also, not only have we uncovered insights about our customers, but we've also uncovered a lot of insights about our team and our company, and how we can make really proactive changes moving forward.
Okay, I'm just gonna high five you on that because that's the
Yeah.
number one
Let's do it. Let's do it.
thing.
High five.
que-
High five.
High five.
Thank
The
you.
number one question I get when our firm does that type of consulting, it's they enjoy the process of design thinking, but it is the how to get it done, how to execute it in the environment that they're having to navigate through.
Yeah.
And, we purposely add and leave time to have those kind of rich discussions and provide follow up with leaders and decision makers to try to help them in that space, because if they don't identify a path
Hmm.
to being able to execute, um, then it was almost all for naught. I mean, they kind of shut down and go back into the way we used to do things mode. So
Hmm.
you're so right in helping with the organization effectiveness piece of that, infusing what they're wanting to do into the culture and having an action plan to do that, and course correcting as they start rolling things out. Do
Yeah.
you find this same thing, something similar?
I do for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Mhm,
think like a lot of companies, especially like legacy established companies, are kind of
mhm,
built on a fiction of linearity, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm.
plug and chug, right? And design thinking, like even though it is decades old as a methodology, really turns that fiction on its head, of like problem solving is nonlinear, right? I mean, I have a whole article written about how design thinking is basically the scientific method for innovation, right? It's not new, like I hope any day now people will stop viewing design thinking as innovative, and it will just be like the traditional way of doing things, right? Like
I
conventional
would
way of
love
doing
that.
things, because it's so logical, and it's a risk mitigating and all that. But yeah, I definitely see that kind of additional challenge presented to leaders, where they're
Mhm.
like, I mean, I think it's also helpful, despite, I often deliver workshops, to my clients, but I still want them to understand that, like, workshops aren't solutions,
No.
like, they are not. And
Yeah.
so I
You're the
do,
vehicle for conversations to
yes,
help
yeah.
generate the
Yes, and
solution.
so
Yeah.
so I do take some pride that, like, oh yes, yes, we did do this like 2-3 day design thinking session, and you have great outputs for it, for the task at hand. But also I do take pleasure in like the realization of, oh wait, it can't stop here. Yeah.
That's right. I love that. Well, let's now move to talk about your book, which is a totally different subject, but is fascinating. First of all, congratulations on the
Well,
publication of I Quit.
thank you.
Can you share with our audience a little bit more about I Quit and a couple of the key points that are there within?
Yeah, I love to. So, the book is called I Quit: The Life Affirming Joy of Giving Up. I wrote it mostly in 2020. So yeah, I was one of those annoying people who wrote a book during the pandemic. I didn't learn another language though, so
I
and
didn't
so
either. No worries.
yeah, yeah. Um, but it really is. It's a collection of stories I collected from real everyday people about how they summoned the courage to kind of upend the status quo and quit things in their lives. Because we all know we're all victims of the status quo, which is that quitting is bad. Quitting means you're a failure, or couldn't hack it, or that sort of thing. And so, and I, in my life, as I kind of walked through earlier, like my circuitous career path, like that was actually in those moments of transition was actually the genesis of the idea for the book,
Wow.
because I found myself I was realizing firsthand for myself that, like, oh, okay, so I was wrong about the NGO world. I don't want to work there, but I'm still not a failure, right? I'm still capable of doing things, and so I kind of had that demystified for myself just through my own experience and change my own mind from one of like an annoying linear thinking perfectionist type into one who is like more embracing of change and how positive intentional change can be. So that was like the personal side. And then when I started Mindhatch, I was going on a lot of like just I'd go on coffee dates with anyone who would, just to be like, starting this business. What do you think? You know, like anyone. And at the time I was on the East Coast, I was living in Washington, DC. And kind of the vibe in Washington D.C. is if you go on like a coffee chat with someone, you basically spend the first 5 minutes just reciting your resumes to each other of like, then I did this, then I did that, then I did this, then I did that, right?
Yeah.
And not bad or good, just an observation about my 8 years in DC.
Yeah.
And I found myself like interrupting, probably rudely, just to be like, wait, you said that you used to do that. Like, why did you stop doing that? Or you said you left that graduate program. Like, tell me why, and I just found myself being really naturally curious about, you know,
Why people
people not
change or stop doing it. Right.
keeping doing the thing they were doing. And
Mhm.
so, and I got really fascinated basically with what I realized later were people's quitting stories, and
Mm.
I found that like in those moments, I felt like I understood people more deeply
Mm.
than if I had just asked them about their greatest successes. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
So what is one like nugget that you would love the listeners to take away as they
yeah,
think about quote unquote quitting or transitioning or whatever pretty word you want to put behind it to a
yeah.
new thought or opportunity?
Yeah, I think like I mean, there's a lot of takeaways, from the book, because the stories are so varied.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing that comes to mind is like this idea that you know, quitting is a choice, of course,
Hmm.
but so is not quitting. And I think like a lot of times in our lives, and for a lot of people, we find ourselves just living our lives with inertia, and we're just
Yeah.
kind of putting off the big decision, right?
That's
And like,
right.
we're just going to stay here and be safe and just do this and put that off. But you just staying here and playing it safe, if that's what it is also a decision, right?
That's
And so
true.
if we can kind of conceive of like inaction as a decision, then we can say, okay, well, is this decision aligning with who I am, what my values are, what my trade-offs are? You
Yeah.
know, I guess what I'm saying is it can't hide. You can't hide,
Not at
so
all.
yeah. And I don't want you to. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I hear you on that one. And this kind of dovetails into my next question. I love to ask all of my guests if there were any of the 7 tactics on that are critical to great leadership execution that really popped out for you. And I'm curious if there was one, and if so, would you mind sharing and why?
Yeah, there was a one that immediately stuck out. It was the second one, I think. It's the leading with courageous agility.
Yeah, and now I think I
Um,
understand why, now that you talked
yeah.
about I quit.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking in the mirror, right? Just
Yeah.
like unclear future. I mean, embracing uncertainty and ambiguity, right? And
Mhm.
being honestly sometimes excited by that.
Yeah,
I think also just like standing up for what you believe and like doing the right thing. I think a lot of my
absolutely.
transition stories were because of realizations that where I was not matching my values, like
Mhm.
moral or professional,
Yeah.
and so and yeah, I'm just kind of getting some clarity around what my own trade-offs are,
Yeah,
and for everyone that's different, right?
that's
And
right.
it should be different.
Mhm.
But for me, it was like, oh, this is not. I can't exist in this space and put up with this
Mm.
based on what I'm going to get out of it. Like it does. It's not a match for who I am.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I know that, you obviously have had such a dynamic work history or career history, I should say. Um, I'm curious for yourself, what does it take for you to lead on top of your game? When do you, are there certain conditions or things that you do, or um, things that resonate with you that need to be in place in order for you to be or deliver at your best self?
Yeah, I think moments when I feel like I'm being a good quote unquote leader
Mhm.
are honestly moments when I feel like I'm in partnership with a peer and when I'm
Mhm.
collaborating, and that
Me too.
that feeling can and has come from an intern of mine. It doesn't have to be like position level peer, it's just when there's a sense of like, let's work this out together, like we're both bringing equal things, and so I think that is when I feel, to use an overused word, but like in flow is like when
Yeah.
I'm like leading collaboratively, right?
Mm.
And not coming in with like I have to be the one to come up with the answer. I mean, I've never been like that anyway, but
Right.
yeah, I think I would much rather kind of have like shoulder to shoulder, you know, um, work being done. Yeah, I really enjoy being in the work. Yeah.
I love that. And as a female founder, what are some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome? Moving to found your own business, or establish your own business, I should say.
Yeah.
What are a few of the obstacles that you've had to tackle and overcome?
Gosh, it's really interesting. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you don't. I I feel like the obstacles I am sure I have confronted are like systemic obstacles, right? Like
Mhm.
I can't really point to like many like visceral, like in my face, like obstacles because I'm a female founder. But
Right, right.
when you're a female founder, your world becomes other female founders and you kind
Yes.
of absorb kind of like what they've confronted, and you read a lot about the business world and just the world in general, and how things are stacked up against you. So you kind of start to have some like, I wonder, was that thing 4 years ago due to that, so definitely like
Mhm.
my suspicions are raised, my hackles are raised, as they should be for all female founders,
Sure.
Um, um, but I can't point to like one story, one anecdote where it felt very, very present, for
Mhm.
me personally. I think it's different also, like I'm not like an investor driven company, I think that world is totally different for women
Mhm.
than
Yep.
when you're kind of quote unquote self-funded, and
Yep.
so yeah, so I think some of the accidental choices I made with my business kind of shielded me from the worst that I know female business owners encounter every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally understand. Well, I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I will not let you off the hook without doing our final segment, which is called Full Disclosure.
Mhm.
There will be no gotcha questions, so don't,
Okay.
don't be afraid
I'm
of
okay with
that.
that suggestions. That's okay.
But I'd just love to ask a few fun questions for you to share
Sure.
with the audience if you don't mind, if you're game.
I'm always game. Yeah.
All right. Well, my first one for you is what are one of your pet peeves?
Oh my God. Okay. You said I was trying to be not salty, but
Go ahead. Go
with
ahead.
salty I hate it. I hate it when people, and it's usually men, like hawk loogies in public.
Yes.
Oh my God. It is just it like I want to say nails on a chalkboard, but nails on a chalkboard doesn't bother me. Like it's that. I get like that movie Kill Bill when she's about to murder someone. I get that alarm noise. Oh, it is
Oh,
awful. And I'm just like, men in suits are doing it. I'm like, you can afford
oh.
tissues or a hanky.
I don't
Like,
understand that for the life of me. That's
ugh,
why it's hard for me to watch baseball because they do it all the time,
oh yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I love sports, but that's hard to get past. So, I mean, we are like sisters from another mother, really.
Yeah. I just hate it. It's just like it's like I think the only people who
Mm,
can do that are the
mm.
unhoused.
Yes.
That's it. That's it. Nobody else gets a pass. Like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, next question for you. What is one of your favorite ways to decompress?
Hmm. Hmm. I I'm pretty like erratic. I don't think I have a very good like, as they say these days, self-care practice. So I don't
Yeah.
do anything. I don't do any one thing a lot. But I
Okay.
think I do a lot of things a little bit at a time. And so
Mhm.
among them are just spending time with my dog. She's such a cartoon and just such a stress reliever, just
Yeah.
insanely amazing. I love what I call tubbies, which is just tub
What is
soaks.
that?
Just tub soaks.
Oh,
Just like
tub soaks.
a tub with
No.
hot water. I just call them tubbies.
Yes,
Um,
tubbies. That was new
that
for me. I'm writing
yeah,
that down.
yeah,
Tubbies. That's a
yeah.
new word.
Um, just like putting bubbles in there and, reading a
Nice.
book or watching a TV show on my iPad. Yeah. Yeah. And then I also really enjoy reading for sure. Yeah. And cooking, I think things that, oh, definitely building Lego sets. I'm a really big
Oh,
fan of Lego sets.
interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's a time where I feel not only like productive, but also
Mhm.
focused in a way that I'm not in any other aspect of my life.
You know what? I
So
bet that's because of your creativity gene or in your DNA. I
maybe,
bet I can imagine what you create with the logos.
so I don't free
Lego.
build. I
Oh, you
don't free
don't rebuild.
build. I buy
Mhm.
like the 3,000 piece sets and
Oh, and
I
create it.
and
Okay,
build them
gotcha.
following the instructions, and then I
Mhm.
display them in my home, and yeah, so I do get like the pre-made ones to build,
Okay.
but it's
Yeah,
still really meditative, right? And it's still kind
gotcha.
of it still like scratches that itch to kind of
Yeah.
do something with my hands, but that's an itch actually I'm trying to like scratch in more in different ways in the
I
near future.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. All right. Well, I'll let you turn the tables on me. And since you've been such a great sport, what is one question that you would like to ask me to have me answer?
Oh my gosh. Oh, it might be so mundane.
That's
Okay,
okay.
okay. I'm gonna ask you a question that used to be a part of improv shows I used to do on the East Coast. One of my teachers,
Uh-oh.
we
We'll
always
see
get to
if I can
ask
help do this.
what was a recent compliment you received, and how did it make you feel?
Oh, a recent compliment. That's a great question.
Or it can be like the
Uh,
best compliment. What's like the most meaningful compliment you've ever received?
oh, you know what? One just popped. So a few weeks ago, I was invited to be a guest speaker at the Global Talent Summit
Mhm.
at Gallup's headquarters in DC.
Oh wow.
And I don't, although I speak a lot and teach a lot, I don't consider myself like a Tony Robbins or a Oprah Winfrey or anyone like that.
Mhm.
But I must say, I think I nailed it because I got a lot of great compliments and got
Yay.
swarmed coming off stage. And so it was a series of compliments. It just kind of reinforced the messaging and the impact I was trying to make on the audience.
Mhm.
I had gremlins in my head going in about, okay, what in the heck can I do to not be that speaker that bores everybody? And the fact that I got swarmed, even people following me to the restroom afterwards, to that point, it just really
Oh,
warmed my heart.
that's
So,
creepy in like a complimentary way.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. I was like, can you give me 30 seconds?
"We'll just do a bathroom hang. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was very thankful that had I had that great experience. I mean, of course, we when we all speak and present, we always do preparation, but that was just very reinforcing.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Oh, I'm happy you had that experience. And
Great
congratulations.
question.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for joining our audience today. And audience members, there will be a ton of information in the show notes. You will not want to miss this episode. We'll have links to Coonoor's book, some of the resources she mentioned, her website. You have got to check it out. And any closing thoughts or words before we finish this episode, Coonoor?
Oh my goodness. Put me on the spot. Okay. Closing thoughts.
It's
Oh my
okay
gosh.
if you don't.
I think just please visit the show notes. Please support a woman-owned small business. And
Please.
yeah, and thanks for listening. It's been a real privilege. Like your curiosity is really generous, and you giving me this platform is really generous. So I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Well, thank you again for your time and attention. And audience members, be sure to once again check out the show notes, and we will see you for the next episode. Take care. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Coonoor Behal, founder and CEO of Mindhatch. Links to her bio, her entry into our leadership playbook, and additional resources can be found in the show notes, both on your favorite podcast platform and at leadyourgamepodcast.com. And now for Karen's take on today's topic of design thinking. For those of you who are not as familiar with design thinking, I thought I'd share just a brief overview of the 6 steps involved in a design sprint. Step 1 is called empathize. This is where you conduct research to develop a better understanding of your users, customers, or stakeholders. Step 2 is called define. And this is where you analyze all your research to understand where the true problem exists. Step 3 is called ideate, where you generate a wide range of crazy creative ideas. Step 4 is called prototype, where you build real-world representations of your most promising ideas. Step 5 is called test, and this is where you return to your users, customers, or stakeholders, and then you get their feedback on your top ideas. And the final step is step 6, which is called implement. And this is where you put the vision of the most promising idea into effect and see what happens. And just so you know, design sprints come in a variety of lengths and variations. And they're most commonly anywhere from 3-hour sprints to 5-day sprints. So if you're a company and you're interested in bringing a design sprint to your organization, check out the show notes where we'll have links to more detailed information. Thanks again for listening, and see you again next week. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.